Welcome back, children. We are going to study about the Androecium, that is the male reproductive part of a flower. So in this video, we'll be talking about the male reproductive part of a flower, and it is known as stamen. So the stamen is the male reproductive part, or the Androecium. Now, what are the various parts a stamen is made up of? A stamen is actually a structure which is found in the plants, and it consists of a long tubular structure which is known as a filament, and the filament ends at the structure which is a slightly oval shaped, and it is known as anther. So each of the filament will lead or end up at the anther. The other end of the filament remains attached to the lower part of the flower, and we will study about how the stamen attachment will be there. That is a different topic. So here the stamen may remain attached to the different parts of the flower, or maybe it may be attached among themselves itself, and it will always end up in anther. Now let us understand what is exactly anther and how the anther is responsible or acting as a male reproductive part. Now the anther actually has two lobes. Now if we cut the anther, if this structure is cut like this, then and when we open the transverse section, the anther consists of two lobes. So this is lobe 1 and this is lobe 2. So these are the two lobes, and each lobe has two chambers. So this is chamber 1 of lobe 1, and this is chamber 2 of lobe 1. This is chamber 1 of lobe 2, and this is chamber 2 of lobe 2. So each of the lobe has two chambers, and these are known as the pollen sac. Now since the anther has two chambers, or it is having two main lobes, it is known as a diathecous. A diathecous pollen, or diathecous anther we will call it. It is a diathecous anther. Diathecous term means the anther is bi-lobed, that is having two lobes. Now the pollen sacs which are present over here are the site for the production of the pollen grains. So the pollen grains, which is the male gamete, it will be produced within the anther, and the anther will have the pollen sacs enter. So over here each of the pollen sac, these are the chambers or the pollen sacs. Now these pollen sacs are responsible for the production of pollen grains. So this is the structure of the anther and the site where the pollen grains are produced. Now as we come down, the anther is attached variously, and you can see the two lobes of the clear structure of the anther dividing into two parts. The line which you see over here is the line of dehiscence, that is the point at which the anther ruptures. Now this is the filament. The filament remains attached to the flower variously, and it transports, main function of the filament is it transports water and nutrients to the anther. So all the nutrients and the water and the minerals, they will be transferred to the anther, which is required for the development of the pollen grains. So the nutrients will reach through the filament. Also, it provides attachment to the anther, that is, it is a connection link between the anther and the flower. Also, it positions anther to help in easy pollen dispersal. So the filament will help actually the anther to position in such a way so as to enable better pollen dispersal for effective reproduction. So the stamen is basically consisting of anther and the filament. The anther is the site where the pollen grains are produced. The filament is the region or the tubular structure that connects the anther and the main body of the flower. Now, when we talk of the anther, it is always considered as a site of the pollen grain production. But there are certain stamens which are sterile stamens. That means they will not be producing the pollen grains. Now, why this condition? There are certain reasons for it. In these kind of stamens, the pollen grain is not actually being produced over here, but instead that staminode, that is the term which has been given to the sterile stamen, that staminode will actually be responsible for producing the nectar. And we have seen this in canna, that is another example for a staminode, where the stamens are sterile, that means they will not be producing the pollen grains. But in some flowers, the staminode functions to produce the nectar as well. So far we have studied about the structure of the stamen and the staminode. There are certain other terms. Now, as I told, the stamen may remain attached to the flower in various ways. Now, if it is attached to other floral parts, or it may be attached among themselves only. Now, when they are attached to other floral parts, one condition, when it is attached to petals, it is known as epipetalous condition. In such kind of a flower, let us see, this is the ovary, this is the style, and this is the stigma. Now this over here is the thalamus region, and this leads to the petals. These are the petals. This is the stigma. Now here in the epipetalous condition, the stamen will be attached to the petals like this. So it is observed in the case of brinjal. So here, as you can see over here, this is an epipetalous condition where the stamen is attached to the petal. So here is the point of attachment. So the such type of stamens are called as epipetalous. In certain conditions, the stamens are found to attach to the perianth, that is the calyx and corolla. When they are fused together, or when they are not very clear, then the flower has sometimes the stamen attached to the perianth, and in such a case it is known as epiphyllous. Epiphyllous condition is observed in lily flower, where you will find the stamen attached to the perianth, and that is the calyx and the corolla when they are not very distinguishable or when they are not very clear. So here the epiphyllous condition. The other situation is when the stamen may be together or they may be free. So when the stamens are free, then it is known as a polyandrous condition. Polyandrous means many, and androus is the Androecium. So polyandrous means when the stamens are completely free, they are not together in the bundle. Example is petunia flower. So in the case of petunia flower, we find that the stamens are not attached with each other. They are individual. That means each of the filament and the anther will be separate. In certain time, we find that the stamens are in the form of bundles. They may be united. Now, depending upon whether they are forming one bundle, they are forming two bundles or many bundles, they are divided as monoadalphous, diadalphous when they are forming two bundles, And when more than two bundles are formed, it is known as polyadelphous. So we have three conditions when stamens are united. So let us understand, in the case of monoadelphous condition, the stamens are in the one bundle. So all the stamens these are the stamens and they are present in one bundle only. This is the one bundle, that is monoadelphous condition, and this condition is observed in the case of hibiscus flower where all the stamens are in one bundle. So here only one bundle is being formed. In the case of diadelphous condition, this is the anther and the other this is the second bundle, and here the stamens are in two. This is the first bundle, this is the second bundle. So here it is a diadelphous condition in which the stamens are in two, one bundle and the second bundle. In the case of polyadelphous condition, the stamens may form many bundles, or they may be held together in many bundles. So we see over here these are the bundles and the blue are the stamens. So as you can see, there are bundles which are more than two over here, and this is an example of polyadelphous condition. This is diadelphous condition where the stamen is two bundles it is forming. One is separate over here and the second bundle is this, whereas monoadelphous condition is one in which all the stamens are forming one bundle. So we find that depending upon the attachment of the stamen, we find it may be attached to other floral parts. In a condition when it is attached to the petals, it is epipetalous condition. When it is attached to the perianth, then it is epiphyllous. And when they are attached or they are forming a bundle, if they are forming one bundle, then they are known as monoadelphous. If they are forming two bundles or the stamens are present, as in the example of pea, we find that there is one free stamen and the other stamens are in the form of bundle. In the polyadelphous condition, the stamens are present but they are in more than one bundle. Example is citrus plants. So this is when the stamens are united. If the stamens are free, as in the case of petunia, we find it is the stamens are not forming any group or they are not in the bundles, then that is a polyandrous condition. Another important thing when we are finding is the length of the filament. The filament length is not uniform in all the flowers. It varies. It differs in different kinds of flowers. And since the filament has a major role in exposing the anther for easy pollen dispersal, the length of the filament also affects the dispersal of the pollen. So if depending upon the length of the filament, the pollen dispersal is brought about. So there may be a lot of variations observed in the case of the length of the filament. Also various type of attachments of anther to the filament is observed in different kinds of flowers. So here we are with the male reproductive system or male reproductive parts of a flower, which chiefly consist of stamen. I hope you are able to understand the structure.